Welcome along, everybody, to the third and final race meeting of the season for the 2020 Dunlop Touring Car Trophy with TCR UK and the Volkswagen Racing Cup. Donington Park's National Circuit plays host for what is set to be three sensational races to decide who becomes the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy champion, as well as the champion in the TCR class. There's also the titles to be decided in the Volkswagen Racing Cup, as they will both share a grid together. And it's also quite a special weekend for the VW Cup, as they have decided to honour one of their fallen drivers from the last couple of seasons. Sadly, one of their favourite members of the paddock, Tom Walker, sadly passed away a couple of years ago. And so this weekend is the Tom Walker Memorial Race Meeting. Whoever scores the most points in VW Cup out of the three races will walk away with the Tom Walker Memorial Trophy. It's a perpetual trophy which the driver will hold on to until the end, or until the next time that the Memorial meeting is run. So heading on track now round to the grid come our touring cars and VW Cup machines, and it is now a straight fight in the championship between Lewis Kent and Henry Neal, although Tim Docker I think would have done with a better start to the weekend than that, because he looks as though he's lost it heading through Redgate Corner and losing a little bit at the back end. Possibly cold tyres, I think, that's seen him make that mistake, but he manages to find the track once again. So, heading round to the grid, as another car off the road, in fact, that is, I think that's Max Hart, in fact, who's third in the championship. So it looks to me as if it's a rather cold track, and as a result of that, lots of rather cold slicks. So everyone is going to be trying to make it round to the grid to try and heat them up as best as possible. So, heading into this weekend, as we mentioned before those spins took place, it is a straight fight for the championship heading into this weekend between Henry Neal and Lewis Kent. There is 1 point separating them, but of course drop scores do have to come into play. So before drop scores, it is 98 points to Henry Neal from Lewis Kent on 97. Next highest in points is Max Hart, because pretty much through all this season he's owned third place, 4 third place finishes. He's currently on 61 points coming to the weekend. There is a tie for 4th in points, but that set's broken because Tim Docker and Dan Kirby, who's not here this weekend racing, are currently with 43 points each, but Tim Docker will overtake him. And also there's an internal battle between Darrell Wilson and William Butler with 23 points each, but of course William Butler and Darrell Wilson, two very different cars. The bright green Vauxhall Astra of Darrell Wilson and the William Butler Cupra TCR, of which there are 4. There are a few new drivers in the championship, as we see a few of the VW Cup cars. We'll talk about them in a second. But new drivers for this weekend, one of which, quite notable, is Sam Osborne, who people will know from British Touring Cars this season, racing for the Mark Blundell Motorsport squad. He switches that Honda Civic, of which one of those similar cars is just on screen there, driven by Henry Neal. He switches it for one of the 2 PMR and Trade Press Cars racing run Cupra TCRs, and he joins William Butler, who made his TCR debut last time at Silverstone. We're also joined by a 4th Cupra in the hands of Mark Wakefield, a regular in the VW Cup, and he has also had a taste of this machinery before. And also we have Jeff Alden in a Civic. But here's the grid and how they line up. Lewis Kent took pole position by over half a second in qualifying to make a statement of intent, and it is a key championship rival who heads him by a point, Henry Neal, who will start alongside him on the front row. BTCC Sam Osborne makes his TCR debut to start 3rd. Alongside him is his PMR and Trade Price Cars Cupra teammate William Butler in 4th on the grid. Max Hart in the first of the 2 Maximum Motorsport Cupras starts 5th. Alongside him, the bright green Vauxhall Astra from DW Racing of Darrell Wilson. Tim Docker's VW Golf lines up 7th alongside Mark Wakefield, a VW Cup convert in the 2nd of the 2 Maximum Motorsport cars. And then Jeffrey Alden, who moves up from VW Cup, is in the ex-Fox Motorsport Honda Civic, also being run by Maximum Motorsport. He starts 9th. Josh Coggan starts on pole for the Volkswagen Racing Cup contingent. He starts ahead of Jack Depper in 11th place on the grid. And Howard Fuller, former BTCC racer, back in the championship, a welcome return. He will start 3rd. Andy Wilmot, who is the other half of the Trade Price Cars Racing management, he starts 4th alongside points leader the key man of the championship, Bradley Kent. Then it's Paul Ivans, and a welcome return to Martin Depper as well. Makes it a proper family affair with father and son. Martin on the grid in 16th place. And so the last few cars are just making their way onto the grid. We've got Richard Gilbert as well, who struggled a little bit in qualifying. And Russell Joyce rounds out the 18-car total field on the grid. So let's talk about the Volkswagen Racing Cup contingent, who are going to be competing this weekend. Heading into the meeting, it is Richard Gilbert who leads the way on 124 points, ahead of Andy Wilmot on 114. and then Bradley Kent on 108 points. So pretty close in the mix. We see the work going on down on the grid, and tyres being swapped around and changed by the Essex and Kent Motorsport squad. They've got cars in both the Touring Car Trophy ranks and in VW Cup. It is Lewis Kent, of course, in his Hyundai i30N TCR that starts on pole position, and his brother Bradley, who is in contention for the VW Cup title, of course, in a very similar liveried VW Scirocco, who will start a little further back amongst the VW Cup contingent. So Richard Gilbert then, who had a bit of a tough meeting at Silverstone last time. I think he had some intermittent electrical or engine issues that forced him to have to limp round in order to pick up points. He did manage to pick up points in the first race, but not so much like in the second, and it means that he still has a lead. Only difference is it's by 10 points. Of course, these guys also have drop scores to take into account as well. Rest of the table sees Paul Ivans in 4th, and that is on 82 points, and 78 points in 5th for Josh Coggan. As for the rest of the field, Russell Joyce is yet to score points, as is also Howard Fuller, Jack Depper and Martin Depper. Now those who are not here, well, 2 drivers here this weekend, of course, but not in VW Cup machinery. Mark Wakefield and Jeff Alden, of course, have moved into their respective touring cars for this weekend. So there's the Team Dynamics prepared ex-Works BTCC Honda at the wheel of with Henry Neal at the wheel of it. Of course, it's overseen, of course, by his 3 times British Touring Car champion father Matt, and also his brother Will Neal also helps to engineer the cars. And he also took part in the season finale here at Donington last year in one of the more current spec FK2 generation Civic NGTC machines. There we see the William Butler Cupra, the 2 Powermax Racing and Trade Price Cars machines. It's a joint effort between those 2 to run those cars. Sam Osborne in the car which Dan Kirby normally drives, the resplendent white, gold and black machine. And this is Will Butler's car, the mostly all-white car with the black flashes. And Will Butler did pretty decent in the first weekend. He managed to pick up a 6th place in the first race. Was involved in plenty of battles in the mix. And we mentioned, of course, with the Tom Walker Trophy, Memorial Trophy, as I say, it's a perpetual trophy, and he's someone who I know that a lot of people within the paddock loved and respected, and his passing was quite a shock. And so I believe the original plan was to have the VW this trophy handed out towards the beginning of the season, but of course the start of the season was delayed by the ongoing current global situation, so it was moved to the final race of the season, and the plan is once again to make it an annual trophy. And once again, to reiterate, it is the best scoring driver out of the 3 races, so the driver who can score the most points in VW Cup throughout over the duration of the 3 races will pick up that trophy as well. So just a reminder of the class structure as well. There is an internal TCR class within the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy. There is an overall Dunlop Touring Car Trophy 1st, 2nd and 3rd. There will also be a winner's trophy handed out to the top TCR driver as well. So that's one to watch out for at the front. As the grid starts to be cleared, the anticipation starts to build. So Lewis Kent then looking to try and hopefully pick up his first championship title in circuit racing, as he has come through the ranks of the Fiesta Juniors and the Fiesta Championship, the juniors of which are racing here this weekend, and he now finds himself in his 3rd season of driving his orange and white Hyundai i30N. Alongside him, Henry Neal, former Mini Challenge racer, moving into touring cars, debuted in the Touring Car Trophy last year when it was simply just a series alongside TCR UK on the same track, but of course now he has a chance of picking up the title. Remember, he heads this weekend just a point ahead of Lewis Kent in the championship. The 2 well-prepared PMR Cupras are looking to make a good impact. Of course, Sam Osborne on his TCR debut with almost a full season's worth of BTCC experience now underneath his belt, and he will look to try and use all of that. He looks pretty decent in qualifying, and we'll hope to translate that into strong race pace. And that car, also in the hands of Dan Kirby, has been rather quick. In the wet qualifying conditions at Alton Park, Dan Kirby took the first pole position via qualifying of the season, and he was in contention for a strong result until he slipped back a little bit, and he was able to pick up a 4th place that day. And since then, he was able to match that in Silverstone's 2nd race. Looking back at the VW Cup competitors and results for them, it was pretty much a clean sweep of Alton Park for Richard Gilbert at the start of the season before technical problems hampered him a little bit at Silverstone, but he'll be looking to rebound as best as he can, starting towards the rear of the grid. So not on the same pace that he would have hoped, and he will start in the 2nd of those 2 bright green JM Motorsport Golfs, which has a very much a TCR style body kit on them. They might look like the TCR VW Golf, but they are in actual fact a TCR body kit for those competing in VW Cup. So the cars head away from the grid onto their formation. That is the first of 3 20-minute races to decide the fate of both the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy and Volkswagen Racing Cup titles. It looks as though we've got Jeff Alden starting from the pit lane in the Maxim Motorsport Honda Civic. That's the former car which Nick Halstead raced last year, prepared by Fox Motorsport, but it's now been taken on by Maxim Motorsport as a third car for them to run. And I know they were having 1 or 2 technical problems with that overnight, which they thankfully managed to fix, and remember to get him out there and at least put some laps in. And Jeff, of course, looks as though, as I say, he will start from the back of the grid from the pit lane. So the cars will make their way around on what is, I'm sure, a very cold track. It's not the warmest of conditions, of course, being in mid-October, but it does mean that these drivers will certainly have to be on the limit in order to find as much pace and grip as possible. Key things to look out for this, of course, are going to be this battle between Richard Gilbert and Andy Wilmot. Now, Andy Wilmot does have position advantage on track, as also does Bradley Kent being further up the field. But what may be a catalyst is the other car in that stable for Richard Gilbert. That is, of course, Josh Coggan, who starts on the front row of the grid on pole position. There's one of the 2 Depper-run machines, car number 30. So good to see both Jack and Martin Depper in the field. Martin Depper, of course, well avoided first, not just in Cup racing, but a former British touring car racer himself. So he's been around a few times to get the job done. As too, of course, does Howard Fuller and Andy Wilmot. So plenty of touring car talent in the VW Cup ranks, not just those competing in an actual touring car. There's Darrell Wilson. He's had some up and down fortunes, but he has shown decent pace at times. And what that Vauxhall can really do. Maybe there's an opportunity here this afternoon and this weekend, as a matter of fact, to possibly grab himself a strong podium finish. His best finish so far has been 5th position in the second race at Alton Park. He's either had technical issues or coming together with other cars. He did have a small tete-a-tete with Dan Kirby in the first race at Silverstone, which saw him off into the gravel track with the tyres, but he managed to rebound and recover, and he will now look to score as strong a result as possible to conclude his season on a high. So the cars line up one by one back on the grid. There is your pole sitter and one of the 2 main championship contenders, Lewis Kent in the Essex and Kent Motorsport Hyundai i30N TCR. Alongside him, the man who just heads in by a point in the championship. One of the VW Cup cars is heading for pit lane. It's one of the Team Hard machines. I couldn't quite catch exactly who it was. It might be... Is it possibly maybe Howard Fuller? I'm not sure, but we'll catch it, I'm sure, on the screen. As we see there, Richard Gilbert starting towards the back of the VW Cup class, looking to try and hold on to his championship lead, but he knows that the likes of Andy Wilmot and Bradley Kent are going to be challenging pretty strongly, considering that he's further back where he should be. Russell Joyce brings the VW Golf into position and the green flag should fly at the back. Let's get set for the first of 3 races in the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy, TCR UK and the Volkswagen Racing Cup. Watch for the red lights at the top of the screen. The first of 20 minutes here at Donington Park. It is Kent versus Neal for the title. Lights out and we go racing. Everyone scrabbles away from the line in these ultra-cold conditions, and it's a great start from the Hyundai for Lewis Kent. He leads down towards Redgate for the first time. Under attack for second place, either side by Cooper is Henry Neal. He's got Sam Osborne trying to squeeze up the inside line. There's almost a bit of contact, but he now holds the second place. So 1 car going around goes Tim Docker. That's another spin for him. This but he gets collected by one of the VW Cup cars, and I fear, was that Richard Gilbert? I think it was. So the championship leader, Richard Gilbert, in the VW Cup is under pressure. Meanwhile, Henry Neal has taken the lead in the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy ranks. He's now heads Lewis Kent in second place. It's Sam Osborne in third and Max Hart in 4th position. Darrell Wilson is also up to 5th, and Josh Coggan is a clear leader, 6th overall, but leading the VW Cup cars heading through McLean's for the first time. So drama for Tim Docker and a collision, of course, with Richard Gilbert, and that is severely going to hamper his championship chances. The door is open, so hopefully Richard is okay. It looks like he's out of the car. Tim Docker also clambering out of his VW Golf TCR as well, and that's Bradley Kent off the road. He's one of the championship contenders. He was 3rd in points coming into the weekend, but whatever issue that is for Bradley, he's off the road. Now, with the 2 cars stranded, that will have to be at least a safety car, I'd imagine, as Henry Neal leads the field around through the Fogarty S's for the end of the opening lap, but they all seem to be slowing up, and that suggests to me that it is indeed a safety car, and that is the case. Safety car has been scrambled. Not really a surprise with 2 cars that are stationary on track because of the incident. But a key move from Henry Neal. It looked like he was under threat initially from Sam Osborne, but managed to find the traction on the exit of Redgate Corner to pursue the back end of Lewis Kent's car and to make the move before they got to the old hairpin. So it's quite crucial. So it must have happened somewhere between the exit of Redgate and on the approach to the old hairpin when we caught them. And Lewis and going through, they have to really slow down to make their way through the debris. It is Howard Fuller that's in the pit lane. The Team Hard boys working along on that car. I think Tony Gillam there on the left is also watching on to see what the issue might be. It's great to have Team Hard back in the championship. They did briefly appear at Alton Park, where they had Ollie Brown, who made his quite a staggering BTCC debut. Been an instructor at Palmer Sport for years, but had never actually raced, and so he managed to put all that ability to good use. And it was quite a hurried few weeks to get him the signatures he needed to be able to compete in BTCC, but he did, and he's actually done quite a respectable and decent job, given the fact that he is a complete racing rookie. He's of course driven fast cars around circuits for many, many years. So marshals are also on standby as well, just in case there is any further issues with Howard Fullard's car, but the Team Hard boys certainly are going to work on that, and that's going to put him a couple of laps down. There's Richard Gilbert's car that's being recovered away, and I'm afraid that really will put him in some sort of strife for the championship. It's not really been his luck. Again, he had those technical problems at Silverstone, and he was hoping to rebound this weekend with a much better 3 races to hopefully keep himself in the championship hunt. And in fact, the red flag's been thrown, and that will give them some time to clear up the circuit after the incident. So red flag, the race has been stopped. They have gone further than the safety car. And that means, as they have completed... Now, they haven't completed 2 laps, and that would say to me is that because in the rules usually, if a race is red flagged before the first 2 laps are completed, then the grid goes back to its original order, which would say to me that Lewis Kent will once again be put on pole position. Henry Neal will be back alongside him on the front row of the grid in 2nd place. That's how I would class it based on the usual regulation. And all the VW Cup cars using this opportunity to at least try and get some extra heat into those tyres, and what is not the warmest of days, but certainly that makes a difference, particularly when you've got to keep temperature in. Usually warm tyres on a cold track is quite a good combination, because it means that the colder track means you can regulate the temperatures and the wear and the degradation a little bit better. So you need to try and get as much heat into them as you can in order to really get them into their optimum range. But of course, being sat stationary on the grid, they will become stone cold once again, so they'll have to try and form everyone up based on that original order. So what we can take from that first start was the fact that it was an equal launch from the first couple of rows, and Lewis Kent did initially get the whole shot into Redgate first of all, but it was, I think, as a result of defending from Sam Osborne on the exit of Redgate, it was Henry Neal seemed to find quite a lot of traction on the exit of the corner and was able to pull himself alongside. And I'm not sure if maybe a little bit of the cold track conditions maybe played into a factor of Lewis Kent losing the lead, but nonetheless it was Henry Neal that was in front. So Howard Fuller's car appears to have been fixed, whatever the issue was. He's also down at the end of the pit lane with William Butler, so the PMR Trade Price car squad have been working on that car as well, and it looks to me that either they may or may not release him back around to the grid, or they will have to have him start from the pit lane, as will also Howard Fuller. So that's one thing to watch out for. I think the recovery vehicle getting Richard Gilbert's car away, I think they pulled it to one side. It looks as though they've managed to pick up a recovery vehicle to get it around again. Tim Docker's car is being pulled away on the inside on the right of shot. And the medical vehicle there is purely for a precaution. They only really bring the medical vehicle there just in case, as purely just to make sure, because of course, in any incident, medical teams have to be down there just to make sure that the driver is A-OK. Both drivers appear to be walking and talking, and look as though physically they are unharmed, but they will get a very, very quick check over just to make sure that they are OK. So as we say, the timer has gone back to 20 minutes, which means we will get our full quota. And there are the two cars waiting at the end of pit lane after their brief visits, and everyone is being now reformed onto their grid positions. So as suggested, we are going to get the full 20-minute restart, thankfully, and the cars are being really regridded up into their original qualifying position. So Lewis Kent gets another shot at holding on to the lead from pole position, and Henry Neal has to do it all again from the front row alongside him. Now, Sam Osborne is third, but of course there is a gap on that second row, as we mentioned, because William Butler's car is at the end of pit lane. Now, the reason why he came into pit lane, forgive me as I know not what the reason was, but whatever it was, has forced him to have to make a decision to start further down. There's a couple of gaps in the field where we need to regrid some of our VW Cup cars. Of course, the restart will take place sans Richard Gilbert, which of course means that's a further dent in his hopes for the VW Cup Championship, and it also means we'll have Tim Docker, who has not had the best of days so far, forgive me for saying, because he did have that spin coming out of the pit lane, and then just on cold tyres, again, getting heat into the tyres when it's the temperatures are this low is so crucial, and that was a clear example of it. Tim Docker's car turning in through Redgate Corner, the back end just having no grip whatsoever. Back around it went, and then as he was coming back through on track, he then got collected by Richard Gilbert, who would have had nowhere to go. That was simply not at all anyone's fault. It was simply just a racing incident and a victim of circumstance being Richard Gilbert. So unfortunately the team will have to try and get that car fixed up between the end of this race and the two races tomorrow in order to get it back out and hopefully to try and salvage some points from the next two races and try and get himself as forwards. Now Bradley Kent's also back on the grid. I thought for a second he had a bit of front bumper sticking out, but it might just be the angle of the camera shot that we're looking at. The recovery vehicle is almost finished with loading up Richard Gilbert's damaged VW. So looking back at some of the other drivers on the grid, we're looking at Max Hart, who's made his saloon car debut and touring car debut this year. Up until last year, he was racing in single-seaters in the very popular Monoposto Championship, which is pretty much an all-comers single-seater style championship. And he was racing a rather unique Irish-built chassis, if I'm correct. He was running pretty well in that as well, so looking to translate he's looked to try and translate the pace he's had in that single-seater to the touring car, and it's worked pretty well with 4 consistent third-place finishes. Jeff Alden's car has been able to make it back out onto the grid. He's forming up in what would be his original grid spot, so he will be able to start from 9th on the grid. Of course, the one TCR car we won't have, of course, is going to be Tim Docker, sadly, and if they do allow him back around, we will also get William Butler as well, but I imagine possibly, because they haven't seen him re-released yet, that potentially he will be forced to start from that pit lane, including Howard Fuller. So, other drivers in the mix, Darrell Wilson, of course, in the bright green Vauxhall Astra, which is the second car on the right. You can't really miss it, it is completely bright green. And he has raced previously before in VW Cup as well as Alfa Romeos, and he has also competed in Brit Car at the wheel of I think it's a diesel Volkswagen. In fact, he was one of the few drivers in VW Cup history to run a diesel car. You can always tell it was a diesel because of the thick black smoke that was coming out of the exhaust. So he certainly is quite well experienced, and in other times when he's raced in Brit Car, he's raced at the wheel of a Porsche, so he's raced all sorts of different machinery. He was one of the first few drivers that joined TCR UK when it was incepted back in its inception in 2018, and he's had that car pretty much ever since in 2018. And he's steadily found the pace and had some help from Opel in Germany to try and get it up there, and from Kishling Motorsport and the other tuners that they have looking after the TCR cars for Opel and / Vauxhall. And he's been getting quicker and quicker, and he has been getting close to a podium. In fact, I think he even has had a couple of podiums since he's joined the championship. Should mention our two upcomers from the VW Cup, being Jeff Alden, who prior to VW Cup was in Minis, sorry, Clear Cup, forgive me. He's been sort of making steady progress in pace, and it's his first weekend in a touring car. And Mark Wakefield, who I believe did do a touring car round last year in pretty much the same Cupra, which he's racing this weekend, just a slightly different livery, which was also being looked after by Maximum Motorsport, and he has been a mini challenge VW Cup race as well. So plenty of calibre from drivers, not just in the VW Cup, but also coming further afield from other highly respected front-wheel drive championships like Mini Challenge and Clio Cup, and even, as we say, with Lewis Kent coming up through from the Fiesta Juniors and the Fiesta Championship respectively. And it was Lewis and Bradley who both went through Fiesta Juniors together, but they both went through Fiesta Juniors, but not at the same time. But they both went through, I think, whilst Lewis was moving up into the Senior Championship, Bradley was beginning in Juniors, and there was a stage when both of them were racing in the Championship together. So again, some very capable front-wheel drive tin-top style platforms for drivers to come up through. So you can see here that William Butler and Howard Fuller have in fact been allowed to make their way around out of the pit lane and onto the grid. They will take up their original grid spots, which is good to see. So it means that it will be William Butler back on 4th on the grid. And in terms of Howard Fuller, he was fairly close towards the front end of the field when making that original start. And whatever the issue, well, he wasn't scheduled to start there, but unfortunately had that issue which forced him into the pit lane before the race had even started. So he came in straight from the warm-up lap. And so it looks like you can see at the top of the screen, the race time has actually been shortened to 15 minutes. So it's a 15-minute race. So that clear up has meant we've had to slice 5 minutes off the race time. And so Howard Fuller was due to start that first race originally from 3rd on the grid, but he had to, in the pit lane, and he had to forfeit that, and he missed everything that went on track, and so he was in, ironically, one of the best positions to avoid it all. So William Butler and Howard Fuller make their way through the grid, just squeezing their way into position. Once they're there, we should hopefully get the 1 minute and 30-second board before the cars head back off onto another formation lap, and then we should be able to hopefully take you through the grid again, just to reiterate who is starting where. As we mentioned, because the race didn't complete 2 full laps, the rules state that the grid then goes back to its original order from qualifying. So Lewis Kent will be able to resume from pole position once more. So the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy, its entry mainly dominated by TCR cars, but of course the only non-TCR car is the Honda Civic on the right-hand side on the front row, the ex-factory BTCC car for Team Dynamics in the Honda Civic Type R, of course now being run in the hands of Henry Neal, and still run by Team Dynamics, and some of those generation cars do still run in the British Touring Cars this season. And one driver who knows all about them is Sam Osborne, who starts in 3rd. Of course, his Mark Blundell Motorsports squad run 2 of them for himself and Jake Hill. And as a bit of a break in between BTCC rounds for Sam to keep his hand in and try something different, he's now in the PMR machine as well. So 15 minutes on the clock then for this restarted race as they head around onto their formation lap to put some heat back into the tyres, as the temperatures certainly would have dropped both on the track and in the tyres themselves. Let's look at the grid once again. So Lewis Kent will start once again from pole position on the front row of the grid in his Hyundai TCR machine. Alongside him, his main rival for the Touring Car Trophy Championship, Henry Neal, in the Honda Civic Type R. Then it's Sam Osborne and William Butler in the pair of PMR trade price cars racing Cupras, 3rd and 4th, ahead of Max Hart in the Maximum Motorsport car, the first of 2 Maximum Motorsport Cupras, and Max starts alongside the bright green Vauxhall Astra of Darrell Wilson. Then it's Tim Docker in 7th place, Mark Wakefield in the 2nd Maximum Cooper TCR, get you that sounds gone, and Jeff Alden, who is in the ex-Fox Motorsport, now Maximum Motorsport run on the Civic Type R TCR car in 9th on the grid in the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy. Then we go back a row to the VW Cup cars with Josh Coggan starting on pole position. Alongside him is Jack Decker on the front row of that championship entry. Howard Fuller is being allowed to start from 3rd on the grid. Hopefully he'll be able to take his place this time and not making them a dive for the pits. Andy Wilmot will start alongside him, another fellow touring car racer on the 2nd row of the VWs. Then it's Bradley Kent, who had a quick trip into the gravel on that initial first start up here at McLean's. He starts 5th on the grid alongside Paul Ivans. But it's Martin Depper, another former BTCC runner, 7th on the grid from what would have been Richard Gilbert, sadly due to Greg Gates at the start of the race. He will not be taking that place. And then Russell Joyce is the one remaining Volkswagen Golf VW Cup car in the field. So this will very much be a tale of two races. You'll see the touring cars fly off into the distance, and the VW Cup cars will certainly want to put on a show themselves. It's great that we've got a selection of spectators this weekend as well, of course, considering everything that is going on in the world. The Donington Park circuit, as with many racetrack circuits around the UK, it's been a Herculean effort by everyone involved, all the circuits around the UK, by Motorsport UK and all the racing clubs and everyone that makes motorsport happen in the UK to get racing underway. There'll be no racing so far this afternoon for Richard Gilbert, sadly, after his incident at the start. The JM Racing squad have got a lot of work to do between now and tomorrow's first race of the day in order to get that car fixed. So the VW Cup cars once again form their way on the grid. The green flag is ready to be waved. Let's try this again, shall we? It's Kent versus Steele once again on the front row of the grid. Race 1 of the weekend, start number 2 for the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy. TCR and VW Cup is underway once again, and this time it looks to be a slightly better start for Henry Neal as Lewis Kent holds lead, and Sam Osborne immediately cuts across to take second place on the run down towards Redgate Corner for the first time. He's going to go round the outside to take the lead if Lewis Kent can't defend it. Go round the outside, there's contact between Sam Osborne and Lewis Kent. They're both tracking through the gravel. Once again, Lewis Kent hit strife on the first corner. He lost the lead initially, and now he's dropped down further down to third position. So he survived. Where is Sam Osborne? He seems to have disappeared and dropped further down. He's in amongst the VW Cup cars, as once again Henry Neal didn't get the best of starts, but he still leads into the on hairpin. So Henry Neal leads the way then, heading through the Kinkett Starkeys, through Schwantz Curve and up towards McLean's. It's Max Hart up to second place. Remember, he hasn't finished higher than third all season. He's had 4 third places from 4 races. He would love to try and finish higher than the best he can. And in third place after that shaky start from the contact with Sam Osborne is Lewis Kent. He'll make his way out of McLean as that Sam Osborne slides wide on cold tyres through the right-hander at Coppice Corner. He does drift wide, and he's holding on in front of Sir William Butler, and Mark Wakefield also trying to get past as well for the VW Cup cars. It looked like it was Josh Coggan under threat from Jack Depper, so there's a bit of a battle brewing there. But up to the end of lap 1 under racing speeds here for the 15-minute restart in TCT, TCR and VW, and it is Henry Neal who leads the way. It is Max Hart in second place, third place for Lewis Kent, fourth place for Darrell Wilson, then a gap back to Sam Osborne in fifth, back to the scene of the accident. Sixth place for Mark Wakefield, and it's seventh place for William Butler. There's a battle on, we're going 2 by 2 in the VW Cup ranks. Josh Coggan trying to hold everyone back to second place. We've got both of the Team Hard cars in the mix there, as that scrap continues to go on. And heading through the Craner curves and up towards the right-hander and up the inside there so Jack Depper goes to second of the Team Hard machines as they go round the right-hander. And now it's a Team Hard battle for second place in the VW Cup ranks as they turn their way out through, out in the mix there. So through McLean's goes Max Hart, followed by Will Butler, then our VW Cup contenders. Just watching on, that's Howard Fuller's dropped back to fourth position, just ahead of Andy Wilmot. So through the right-hander they go. So Henry Neal still going through, and now challenging for second place is Lewis Kent. After the contact early on, sideways on the exit. You'd never thought a front-wheel drive touring car could get that sideways, but Lewis Kent is proving that to be the exception. So on the first flying lap, Henry Neal has the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 11.832 to finish off that run. Come back through Redgate Corner again, and Max Hart looks as though he's got every little bit as much as pace as Lewis Kent does. Through the Craner curves, taking a slightly wider exit of the Craner curves was Lewis Kent, then trying to set him up to a different line through the old hairpin. They've got a small gap now to Darrell Wilson in fourth position. This seems to be the main battle, and Henry Neal is being allowed to escape up the road. And Lewis Kent knows it, and he's trying hard, getting sideways again through McLean's corner. He can't fault his commitment. He certainly is going for it. There is fourth place Darrell Wilson. There is the Team Manager Championship. He needs to get past Max Hart, and then find some pace to reel back in Henry Neal's lead at the moment, because unchallenged in the lead in that Team Dynamics Honda Civic, he currently has the advantage at the front. So Neal leads the way at the end of lap number 2, followed by Max Hart in second place. Then it's Lewis Kent in third, Henry Neal, another new fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 11.747, so he lowers the best time by another 10th. Sam Osborne now beats that, 1 minute 11.359, so he's flying along, and they can see he's on the tail of 4th place man Darrell Wilson already. Meanwhile, scrap going on for the lead now, because heading into the pit straight there, that was Josh Coggan being put under pressure by Howard Fuller, who's got his nose in front. And now Jack Depper wants to get himself in the mix as well, as he turns in through the right hand, and there's a little bit of contact and gets sideways and trying to get past the pair of them. Looks to be Jack Depper. He gets past Josh Coggan, goes side by side with Howard Fuller, and he's going to get 2 for the price of 1. Slots in front and takes full advantage of the contact between the pair, and he's through into the lead, but he's sliding around with no grip on those rear tyres. The track is still stone cold, and they're still trying to get heat into them as best they can. Andy Wilmot there in the second of the 2 team hardcars, and trying to recover as William Butler. He just arrives onto the tail of this battle for 3rd place in the VW Cup cars. So whatever's happened to William, he's not on the same pace that he was when we saw him at Silverstone previously, but of course he started the season in one of these VW Cup cars originally. Back to the leaders in TCT, and looks as though that Lewis Kent has finally managed to find some pace, and now the Hyundai is starting to come alive. He's looking to the outside of Max Hart on the approach to Redgate corner. He's brave enough to look around the outside and take that wide line, but he might get shown the door by Max Hart, which he does. But at least he knows he's got the pace to try and get past. The question is, how much of a defence is Max Hart going to put up here? I'm sure the answer is set to be an incredibly hard one, because Max Hart will want to get his best result of the season. But even if it comes at the expense of denying Lewis Kent some valuable points for the championship. So far this season, the race wins have all been between Henry Neal and Lewis Kent. That is the site of Tim Docker's car after the contact with Richard Gilbert on the first start. So work for the team there to fix that for tomorrow. But now Lewis Kent is still applying massive pressure to Max Hart. He again looks to the outside line. He's forcing the Irishman to take the title line into Coppice corner. But now Lewis Kent doesn't care. He's going round the outside. He's being shown the edge of the track now by Max Hart. They bang wheels, they bang panels. Lewis Kent puts 2 wheels onto the grass, but he stays side by side. Henry Neal's oblivious to this, just laughing to himself at the front of the field, pulling away. For second, looking down the outside, still Lewis Kent cannot make his way through. And look in the background, because Sam Osborne, not only has he passed Darrell Wilson, but he's arriving on the tail of the 2 cars in front of him. Henry Neal with another new fastest lap of the race. That gets beaten by Sam Osborne, only just by a few thousandths of a second. As again into Redgate corner comes Lewis Kent to try and possibly get the switch back here on Max Hart. And if he gets better grip off of Redgate corner, in the gravel trap has gone Jeff Alden up at McLean's, and the Matrix Motorsports Honda Civic is going to try and dig himself out. There'll be yellow flags up there. Slightly wide off the apex there was Lewis Kent. He's still being frustrated by Max Hart for second place here. Back with our VW Cup runners, and it is now, that is Jack Depper that's in the mix. So Martin Depper, forgive me. And then William Butler is trying to find some pace edge. Also, we see Josh Coggan who's fallen right back, and he is now with Andy Wilmot. So that's changed around quite a lot since we last saw it. So now Jack Depper leads the way. Howard Fuller in second place. And then Martin Depper's now up to third. Something's happened between Josh Coggan and Andy Wilmot, it looks like. And also Bradley Kent's struggling a little bit. He's having his own private battle with Paul Ivans, but that's only for around about 6th or 7th in the VW Cup class. So not as high as he would like to be. Across the line, they were, in terms of the race order in the VW Cup class, that's a scrap going on for 6th and 7th. Now, Jeff Alden's car is struggling through Coppice corner. It's going slowly on the inside line. Now, I'm not sure, it looks as though it's possibly sitting down its right front. So whether it's a tyre down or a suspension problem, whatever the issue is, he's crawling back onto the exhibition straight down towards the pits once again. But not all is well with that Honda Civic. Leeds and VW Cup make their way through the Fogarty S's. Now, was that also William Butler making his way to the pits, I wonder, because he took a rather tight exit and wasn't going all that quickly. And I think he has gone to pit lane. Yes, he has, looking at my timing screen. So sadly, William Butler not all is well with his car. Of course, he had to go into the pit lane when the red flag came out of the pausation of the first start, and sadly that car's gone straight into the garage, so he is another driver that will have to have some work. Also, I saw Russell Joyce in there as well. Now then, for second place, it's going to change again, because Max Hart is not only defending from Lewis Kent, but look at how close Sam Osborne is. He sailed right onto the tail of the battle for second place. It's now a trio for second, third and fourth, and if Lewis Kent isn't careful, he's about to be passed by Sam Osborne on the run down towards Redgate. He's so busy defending from Max Hart. There's a bit of contact. Piece of bodywork goes flying into the air. That was possibly one of the rear wheel arches there as Lewis Kent runs wide, and here comes Sam Osborne on the exit Redgate corner to put himself into third position, and that is exactly what Lewis Kent doesn't need if he's contending for the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy title. There's also a trophy given out for the top TCR runner, so at the moment, if that stays the same in this order in the next 6 minutes or so, Max Hart will get that trophy and the maximum points for the TCR class. But for first, second and third in the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy and the points that come with it, Lewis Kent is not where he needs to be. He needs to be in front of these two cars and closing in on Henry Neal. But he's losing pace and losing time. He's right under the rear wing of Sam Osborne, who in turn is now in a sandwich between Hart and Kent through the right-hander across this corner. Here comes Kent trying to get better traction off the corner on the exhibition straight down towards the Fogarty S's. He's in the slipstream of Max Hart, and Sam Osborne, with pure pace and grip, just sails down the outside. Max Hart comes back into the complex. They both make contact. The two Coopers skip across the chicane, and Lewis Kent still can't get past Max Hart, who defends the inside line. How frustrated must Lewis Kent be? And look at the background, Darrell Wilson could get involved in this as well. Down the outside into Redgate corner. Still, Max Hart will not yield. He gets another tap for Lewis Kent, who gets him sideways. He now goes off wide onto the gravel. So does Sam Osborne. They're still banging panels. Lewis Kent is getting very frustrated. He finally gets through to second place. Another piece of bodywork goes for a Burton on the inside line as well. That's now both rear wheel arches that Max Hart has lost. But into the right-hander at Old Hairpin, it wasn't as tidy as he would have wanted it to be, but Lewis Kent has managed to finally get through and break the seal on getting past Max Hart. He's finally managed to prise the door open and make it stick. Now for the VW Cup runners, Howard Fuller has made it into the lead past Jack Depper, so he now leads the way, and Martin Depper, Jack's father, is coming up for a bit of family support here in third place. Fourth place for Josh Coggan now as he starts to close in. It's fifth for Andy Wilmot, and there's Josh Coggan's teammate Richard Gilbert, who sadly has got a lot of work to do between now and tomorrow to get that car race ready again. Into the Old Hairpin. There's your top four in VW Cup. It's still Howard Fuller making a welcome return to racing. He is a former TCR UK racer. Picked up a podium at Brands Hatch in the first year in 2018. It's good to see him back at the wheel, not just with Team Hard, but in a race car nonetheless. And he's going to be able to show his talents as he is doing now. Currently leading the way in VW Cup. So here's that scrap for second, third and fourth, still between Lewis Kent, who, despite getting past Max Hart, still hasn't really been able to shake off the two Coopers behind him. And they're now about to go and combat their own private battle. Getting tangled up at the Fogarty S's across the gravel. And while Lewis Kent did manage to make it through, past Osborne, and now sideways for Howard Fuller, who gets it loose entering the Fogarty S's, and he will now possibly lose the lead if he's not careful to Jack Depper. Martin Depper's also in the mix to try and take advantage of that if he's got the pace off the chicane, which he has. Jack Depper gets into the lead for first, and for second now, there's contact between Martin Depper and Fuller. They both head into Redgate corner. Martin Depper does the switch back, wide goes Fuller, and now he's going to lose third place because here comes, with two wheels on the grass, Josh Coggan, and in the space of a few moments, Howard Fuller goes from the leader to fourth in, what was it, 2 corners. Incredible. Back to the TCR leaders. Just under 3 minutes to go. 2 minutes 45 to be exact. The second, third and fourth place battle is coming up to lap the Honda Civic of Jeff Alden, who is still struggling round after his excursion into the gravel trap at McLean's earlier on. He's able to dig himself out with front wheel drive, and he's still ambling around to complete his first TCR finish. Darrell Wilson's fallen back a little bit. Now we see the scrap being joined by the VW Cup cars. And look at this, it's father versus son for the lead. Son leads it, but your father will probably want to take the victory off him if he can. With some healthy sibling rivalry here that's about to go down with about 2 minutes to go here. The two VW Scirocco's nose to tail as they turn their way through the Fogarty S's, right and then left onto the pit straight. Josh Coggan looking to uphold JM Racing Honours now in third. Two Team Hard Golfs in the background in fourth and fifth. Howard Fuller dropping to fourth after he led earlier on. But that big sideways moment heading into the final chicane is what cost him and lost him so much momentum going down the pit straight and through Redgate corner. Lewis Kent, meanwhile, still has that second place. We should still mention the fact that Henry Neal does still lead this race. We haven't really talked about him too much because he's been so far off into the lead. To be exact, if I check my timing screen, he currently leads at the moment by 11.1 seconds. So I think, touch wood, unless something happens in his last couple of laps, and I've probably put the commentator's curse on it now, It looks as though Henry Neal is on course for his 3rd win out of 3 weekends. There is Henry Neal, pretty much just spread eagling the field here in the Team Dynamics Honda Civic Type R. And say a casual Sunday drive, it's more a casual Saturday drive for him at the moment because he's got quite an advantage. So there goes Henry Neal, there goes Bradley Kent in the VW Cup cars, still waiting. Still waiting. There goes Paul Ivans, still waiting. There they are. They're 2nd place and 3rd and 4th. Now, what's crucial, Sam Osborne's got past Max Hart since we last saw them, so he's now up into 3rd place. And we saw how good Sam Osborne was early on in the earlier stages when he was pumping in fast as laps. There's a great chance here that Sam Osborne could, in fact, still further spoil Lewis Kent's party and reclaim 2nd place, because he tried to do that, I think, around the outside heading into the chicane here, but made contact with Max Hart as they turned their way through. They both stripped through the gravel, and Lewis Kent managed to get past Osborne again, but not Max Hart until a few corners later. So Lewis Kent with the headlights flashing to warn Paul Ivans to get out of the way. I'd imagine the next car he'll come across, which is his brother Bradley, in his VW Cup spec VW Scirocco, will quite happily get out of the way for his brother as well. Because Bradley has pulled away now. Is that Sam Osborne in trouble? Sam Osborne in the Cupra is in trouble. He's slowing on the exit of Redgate Corner. So problems for Sam Osborne. He was in 3rd place, but he's dropping down the order. There is Max Hart getting past Paul Ivans. But where is Sam Osborne? I saw him slowing at the top of the screen, and Max Hart had got through. So drama for Sam Osborne, which is a real shame for the Cupra. And there he is. He's pulled off onto the grass just in the cradle curves. That is such wretched luck. William Butler having to retire, and now the 2nd PMR Trade Price Cars Cupra will not make the flag either. So heading into the Fogarty S's once again. And it looks as though I think that we're going to have one more time around this time. There is Henry Neal, who is on the final lap now in this first race of the weekend for the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy, beat from TCR UK. And I think, in fact, actually, that might well be the flag, in fact, because we didn't spot the checkered flag, I think. Yes, it was, forgive me. So Henry Neal then picks up victory in race number 1. And by quite a canter, he did it by almost 11 seconds in the end. That is his 3rd win from 3 races for Henry Neal, and he is absolutely delighted with that, and why not? Absolutely so, doing a bit of pick-up on the outside there. 2nd place for Lewis Kent, so it does limit some of the damage that Henry Neal has just done, but of course what he now needs is 2 stronger results to beat Henry Neal, and hope that his drop score is enough to try and make it through. Now for the VW Cup class, it's still not over yet. Jack Depper leads the way from Martin Depper, and Josh Coggan also closing in as well, but I think it's about to be a family one too, because as they head through the final chicane from the last time and onto the pit straight, it's going to be a Depper 1st and 2nd with Josh Coggan in 3rd. Jack Depper heads to the checkered flag, and he wins the first race of the weekend for the Volkswagen Racing Cup. It's Martin in 2nd place. Josh Coggan picks up 3rd position after quite a hard-fought battle between those at the front of the field. It's going to be a Team Hard 4-5 because we'll have the Andy Wilmot car past Howard Fuller, so there was a change there between the 2 Team Hard cars. But there's the result from race number 1 of the weekend for the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy with TCR UK and VW Cup. It's Henry Neal who wins the TCT segment in his Honda Civic Type R for Lewis Kent, who finished almost 11 seconds behind. Max Hart picks up 3rd, so once again, same 2 drivers on the podium as the last 4 races. Darrell Wilson is 4th in his Vauxhall, 5th for the Cupra of Mark Whitford. It's a Cupra, not a VW Golf, so that's a bit of a glitch there. Jack Depper finishes 6th overall, and he also wins the Volkswagen Racing Cup portion of the race from Martin Depper and Josh Coggan. Sam Osborne is classified as 9th, but albeit being a lap down, so he might have even possibly made the flag, I think, after a quick Control-Alt-Delete reset. Andy Wilmot finishes 10th overall, and he finishes 5th in VW Cup. 11th place overall and 6th in VW Cup for Howard Fuller. Then Bradley Kent, Paul Ivans and Jeff Alden made it to the flag. Will Butler, of course, had to pull in after earlier problems, and we lost Russell Joyce early on in the early stages of the race as well. So an exciting race for those. We've got 2 more coming up later on, so be sure to join us for more action from the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy, TCR UK and the Volkswagen Racing Cup from Donington when we come back to them later for race number 2. So, on this BRSCC live stream, we have completed our first of 3 races for the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy, TCR UK and the Volkswagen Racing Cup. Now, coming up throughout the rest of the day, almost the rest of the day, it is straight Caterham. So we've got the BMW Compact Cup second race at the end of the day, but now coming up, we've got 4 Caterham races here with a qualifying session in between one of them as a bit of a break. So the first race you're going to see from Caterham Motorsport will be the combined grid for the Avon Tyres Caterham 7 310R Championship and the 7 UK Championship. The 7 UK Championship was formerly known as the 420R Championship, but over the course of the off-season, Caterham Motorsport were able to obtain UK national status from Motorsport UK for that championship. So whoever wins the championship, and we'll see it's fairly obvious who might possibly win it, and we'll explain that in a second, they will become the first ever British Caterham champion, which is quite a substantial thing to achieve if you can. And the reason why I say it's possibly obvious who might well win it, because for anyone who's been following the 7 UK Championship this year will know that there's been one person who has been practically unstoppable this season, and that is John Byrne in a car prepared by someone else who, when he was in a Caterham, and usually when he does get in one still, is unbeatable, and that's Danny Winstanley in his own DW Racing outfit. So John Byrne has pretty much been the man to beat so far this year in the 7 UK ranks. He has, up until now, I think, at least taken every single one of the Super Poles, but we'll get onto that in a second in terms of this morning's Super Pole session. He's won every single race out of the 6 that's been run. He's also picked up 4 of the 6 fastest laps on offer as well. And so he currently leads the way by quite a substantial margin in the points. But this weekend has started with him not quite the fastest man out there, because in the Super Pole session, the last man to cross the line was the man that actually took the fastest time, and that is the black and gold car of last year's 310R champion, Gordon Sawyer. So he starts on pole position in the first race. Alongside him on the front row will be John Byrne. And then in the 310Rs, it's a strict battle now with James Murphy, who is a former road sport champion, who heads the way, and he's got some work to do to try and make his way up the order from a few places back and around about 4th position. So we'll go through the grid very shortly. But the 7 UK cars are purpose-built Caterham race cars. They run a 2-litre Ford Duratec engine, a Sadev sequential gearbox, and they are pretty much a speedster chassis with a roll cage locked onto the top as well. They are incredibly quick, and they, of course, being their UK status, means that they are some of the fastest Caterhams out there